Hi everyone and welcome to the Property Podcast. It's Rob B here with Rob D and this is episode 236. And this week we're going to look at your deals that you've sent in for us to assess live as we record on the podcast. No major prep, this is raw reactions. You get our real thoughts on these deals, feedback and advice. Let's do it.
Yeah, we do love these ones. We've done it a couple of times before. It was really popular. We had a great time, so we're doing it again. Thank you for sending in your deals. A lot of you have. We're going to get to a few of those later on, so you'll see if yours got chosen. But even if it didn't, you should hopefully learn a lot from looking at the way that we approach the deals that we do look at. So that's coming up, plus an interesting/troubling news story. But first, Rob, a few bits to get through, starting off, most importantly, with the summit, which we had up in Manchester the other week, and what a fantastic day it was.
It was sunny Manchester. No, it wasn't sunny. Of course it wasn't. But it was a great day. Great group of people, really good investors. I'm excited for them because they've connected with some brilliant, like-minded people. The summits are all sold out. So this isn't trying to get you to buy a course or anything like that. They're sold out for the year. The November one in London has long been sold out and there's a waiting list for the next one. But we're really looking forward to that London one now because the Manchester one was really good, really strong group. And it's the first one in this new format where we've got a smaller group of people and there is a bit of a qualification process to get in, but it worked really well.
Yeah, and someone brought chocolates, so I was happy. So if you are coming to a future summit and you want to endear yourself to me, you know how to do it. So that
hard
was
to beat those Swiss chocolates as well.
Yeah.
Flown over from Switzerland.
Exactly. So
well, that's what she told us anyway. It could have been from the duty free, but
yeah, but I appreciated them either way. So that was a really fun day, chocolates or no chocolates. So that was fantastic. A couple of other bits to mention. First of all, we have got a new course for you. So more details on exactly what that is coming up at the end of the episode today, but just wanted to flag that up so you keep on listening because our courses are always free. They're always popular. And this one, I think, is going to be extremely popular. So stay tuned for that.
And of course, that link is live already and working, but something that wasn't working was the Discovery webinar link that we mentioned last week. So the Discovery webinar, for those who don't know, is a chance really for Rob and I to talk about the businesses, the things that we work on day to day, so you don't have to listen to them about in the podcast. So if you're interested in working with us in the businesses that we run, then fantastic. You can learn about them in that Discovery webinar. So companies like RMP and Yellow Lettings will be discussed. So the webinar link that should have been working last week was the propertyhub.net/discover. We're very pleased to tell you that that link is now working. So if you'd like to join us on September 27th at 6 p.m, go to the propertyhub.net/discover and you can learn all about Yellow Lettings, all about RMP Property, how they work, how they've helped work with hundreds, if not thousands of investors already, and take advantage of them if you so wish. But no major hard sell there, Rob. It's more informative than selling.
Yep, exactly. It's our way of taking the sales pitch off the podcast and putting it into somewhere where it's there if you want it. But if you're not sure about what we do, then well worth coming along and finding out because there's a good chance it could be helpful for you.
I'll tell you what would be helpful, Rob, is if I kept a better abreast of what's happening in the news, because I missed this one, and this seems pretty big news to me, pretty scary anyway, from the headline.
Yeah, it sounds scary. It's not actually as serious as it sounds. So the headline really is rent controls are being introduced in Scotland. So that sounds really dramatic because everyone's scared of rent controls for good reasons. And they are being introduced in Scotland, but it's not quite as bad as it sounds. So we'll link you to the full story in the show notes. The show notes this week are the propertyhub.net/deals3. That's deals and then the number 3 because this is the third deals episode we've done. So you can go and look at the full story there. But the gist is that from December, Scottish councils are going to have a new power to cap rent increases. So they're going to have this from December. They've never had it before. And the story has come about because Edinburgh and Glasgow councils have said that they're intending to use this power straight away. So what this is going to give them the power to do is to cap rent increases for up to 5 years at the rate of CPI plus 1%. So basically, if you've got somebody who moves into a property, you then cannot choose to increase the rent. Even if the market rent increases, you cannot increase it by more than CPI plus 1% per year. So this is not quite the same as proper rent controls, which is where the government says, this is what the rent is, it cannot be higher. What they're doing is they're capping the rate of increase, but still a bad idea economically. We're going to do a little mini economics series soon, and part of that will explain why this is a bad idea, economically speaking. But still not great for landlords in Scotland, and worrying for landlords elsewhere, because it tends to be the case, or can be the case, that things get trialled in Scotland and then get rolled out in England and Wales as well. But a little bit of good news for landlords in England, but a more positive shine on this. Alok Sharma, who's the new housing minister, the 8th housing minister in 4 years or something ridiculous, he's done a speech recently and he's explicitly said that rent controls are not government policy in England. The quote from his speech was, "Let me be absolutely clear, under this government, rent controls are not going to happen." So we can all rest easy, Rob, because politicians always say what they mean what they say, and we can trust what they say 100%.
I feel like a tingle, and this is like my rant tingle rate. my rant tingle is there. Let me be absolutely clear. Why do they all have to talk the same? Why do they all use that line? Let me be absolutely clear. I'm lying through my teeth. Right. What I would say on that story is I don't actually think that's terrible news for landlords. I could actually argue it's not great news for tenants, because if a landlord really does want to increase their rent, they'll be motivated to push their tenant out rather than keep them if they're restricted to what they can raise the rent by. So I'd actually say, as it stands, not great for tenants either. That not particularly wonderful for landlords, but probably, arguably worse for tenants. As I say, Rob, I've only just read this news story, but that's what it seems to me.
Yeah, my understanding is the same. I don't know all the detail on this, so this is a wait and see. Like we say, the power doesn't actually exist yet, but it's going to be interesting to see how this develops, exactly what form it's going to take, exactly how they are going to bring this into practice. So we will keep you updated as it happens. For now, though, let's get on with our topic of the week, analysing listener deals. So we've picked out a few from the many that you sent us. Thank you for doing that. So we're going to do this pretty much live. We've gone through and had a quick look. We've picked out some that look particularly interesting, but we haven't really done any analysis on it. So we really are going to, you might hear us tapping away in the background when one of us is talking. The other one's probably going to be right moving away and seeing what's going on. We're going to be giving our first impressions, kind of going through our process as it happens. So you can see the approach that we take to analysing a deal. So Rob, let's crack on, shall we? This first deal has been sent to us by Mark, and this is a 3-bed terraced house in Worcester Park, which is in Kingston, near South London. And this looks like a very nice property that's on the market for £475,000.
Yes, this is very nice. So I'm looking at the Zoopla link that Mark sent. As Rob said, it's a 3-bed terrace. Nice curb appeal, nice pictures too. As you flick through, nice garden, very nice. This is the type of property, Rob, and I don't know if this is a good or bad thing at this point, but I'd happily live in this property. But I don't mean like I'd accept living here, like I'd move in today. It looks really nice. It's got curb appeal, really nice gardens. It's been really well decorated, but when I say really well, you can tell money's been spent on it. This hasn't been done on the basic, on the cheap. It looks like a really nice family home. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops as a buy-to-let. And when we look at the numbers, I don't need to do too much research to go, the returns aren't that wonderful here. But should we look at what Mark says about this deal and why it's attracted him in the first place?
Yeah, let's. So Mark's looking at this. He wants to pay £450,000 for it. He thinks the rent will be £1,600 to £1,700 per month. He likes it because it's close to where he lives. The ROI isn't great, he says, but the capital growth is pretty solid in the area and the property doesn't need any work doing to it, and it looks that way from the photos as well. And he says that there's the potential in the future to add value with a loft conversion and a kitchen extension at the back, which a lot of the properties in that area have had done. So that's a good sign. If other properties on the street are having it done, that bodes well for being able to get permission to do it. His concerns are having a lot of capital tied up, assuming that he's going to be able to get a mortgage at 80% LTV. But even with that mortgage, by the time you've had stamp duty plus the extra 3%, and it's a high purchase price, he's going to be leaving about 150k tied up. And he's wondering if he should be splitting that capital across a couple of flats in the area instead. So Rob, what's the verdict?
So he finishes with, does the deal stack up? What would be the max we'd pay? And at this price, is the deal still attractive? This is quick, Mark. No, this is not an attractive deal. So the rent you've put here that you believe you'll be able to achieve is between £1,600 to £1,700 per calendar month. On a purchase price of $450,000, you're going to be struggling to get a mortgage at 80% loan to value. But actually, when we say struggling, I just don't know how you would. Even if the rent ratios stacked up, and please go and speak to your mortgage advisor or mortgage broker and they'll explain this to you in more detail, because I appreciate you can't ask questions back. But if you're buying at 80% loan to value, you now, and you have for a little while, have to meet certain ratios in terms of the rent versus the mortgage. And this normally means that you have to work it out at 5.5% and at 125% or 140% of cost. Listen, that's a lot of detail, and I've probably lost a few people in the podcast, but we haven't got time to go into that now. But maybe, Rob, we can expand on that in the future. But the point is, you won't be able to get a mortgage at 80%. We had a quick play around with the numbers, and it doesn't work at 70. It probably just about works at 60% loan to value. So the first thing, Mark, is you will be tying up a lot more than the 150,000 you first envisaged to make this work. And in terms of ROI, Rob, I know Mark said the ROI isn't super. I think that's a nice spin. I'd say it's bloomin' awful.
Yeah, it's not great. When I looked at this, I jumped to a conclusion straight away, and that conclusion turned out to be right. First of all, it looks too nice to be a buy-to-let. And we've got to be careful about what we're saying here, because we're not saying tenants shouldn't have nice places to live. Of course they should. Of course, every rental property should be a nice place to live. But this just looks super luxurious. This looks far more like a family home for a second-time buyer, that kind of thing. And also, the purchase price is really high. So I look at sort of like, well, £500,000, it looks really nice. This is almost certainly not going to stack up. And it doesn't. The gross yield on it is round about 4% at that purchase price and that level of rent. And at some point during your ownership, the mortgage is probably going to be costing you more than 4% if it isn't already. So I just can't see how this is going to be profitable in any way. Now, Mark talks about extending it and adding some value that way. And that is possible. But if that's the play, then I would say that the thing to do here, if there's profit in doing that, I'd say the thing to do would be to buy, add the value by doing the extension, and then sell on and bank the profit and then put that money into another deal. For me, for holding it, the numbers just don't add up. And okay, there might be good capital growth in that area, but you can't really, I don't think, be putting in that much. You have to put in a lot of cash because of the low mortgage, make basically no money on it. So at that point, it is kind of speculation. So if there's money to be made in this, then I would do that at the start, sell it on, and then go and invest that cash somewhere else, because to hold this just doesn't quite work.
No, it doesn't. You can get a return and capital growth, so why not have both? You know, in time, you'll get capital growth in the most good areas with good fundamentals over a period of time, and you can get a bit of return for your troubles as well. So why go to an area that, as Rob said, you're not going to get any return and actually could turn into a liability where you're having to prop the property up and put more money in to make it work. So not a wonderful deal. I understand that you want to stay local, and that's fair enough. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that depends how you look at it, your local is a very nice area, and that's lovely for your day-to-day living. But you're going to have to go a little bit further afield. Now, this isn't us now saying, go to Manchester. No, it's not. You can possibly go within an hour of where you live. And within an hour of where you live, that opens up a lot of areas, a tremendous amount of areas, a tremendous amount of property, because you're in London. So you can go just to the edge of London, a little bit out, out Slough way, that way, or you can go across to places like Croydon or Bromley. I'm not saying these are places that people should be necessarily looking to invest, but these are places that you'll get a better return than where you're currently looking right now. So I would say, Rob, we're pretty against this one. We're pretty strong against it. And actually, yes, you could do a refurb and flip and so on, but the extension possibility is there. But the rest of the property is so nice already that I'm sure a lot of the value is baked in. So I'm sure you could probably do a bit better if you're looking to do a flip as well. So I think neither of us on the fence on this one, Rob. This is a easy no for us too. But do let us know how you get on, Mark. Let us know what you decide. It'd be interesting to let their listeners know in future episodes. Should we look at our next deal?
Yes. Okay, let's move on to the next one, shall we? So this one comes in from Julie. Thank you, Julie. And this really is from one extreme to the other, because this property has a guide price of just £60,000. And this is a 2-bedroom terraced house in an area of Wales, Rob.
And where is this area, Rob?
It's near Cardiff, I'm led to believe. I don't know how you pronounce it, all right?
You don't want to pronounce it? No? Okay. I think I'm sure there's lots of places we can pronounce in Wales, but I think to say it's near Cardiff is generous, because when we were sent this Rightmove link, I've clicked on it. I thought, I'm not familiar with this particular part of Wales. So I've zoomed out. I'm going to say the sub area of this is called Trey Forest. I've zoomed out. I've zoomed out again. I've zoomed out again. And then finally, after 3 zoom outs, I can finally see a place I recognise called Cardiff. So apologies for our vast number of listeners in Trey Forest. Oh dear. We've lost all 2 of them, Rob. This is not an area we have done a lot of business in, or any, but at least we're improving our geography here. It is a little bit different to the last one, Rob. Would you like to describe the appearance of this property?
Yeah, I was trying so hard not to offend people by mispronouncing the name of the place, and now I think I'm going to undo all my good work. This property does not look fantastic. The curb appeal is not there in the same way as the previous one. It looks like a dirty grey pebble dash box, really, I think is the nicest way to describe this. It does not look fantastic. Inside, again, not the best. It's got some interesting flowery wallpaper. I don't know in what decade that was considered a good idea, but it's not recent. The kitchen actually looks okay. It looks kind of functional, but this is clearly not a property that's seen a lot of love recently. So Julia sent us this. There's a guide price on there of £60,000. She said that she wants to pay $45,000 for it, and she wants to flip it. She likes the look of this because it's close to shopping areas and schools and so on. Her concern with it is that it's been on the market since the end of January. So what's wrong with it? Because we're now in September at the point of recording.
Well, besides how it looks, $45,000 would seem value on the surface level, because when I look around, Rob, at the immediate area, and I tend to look no more than 1/4 of a mile for realistic comparables, there's not many 2-beds on the market, but I have found a nicer looking 2-bed at $80,000, much better curb appeal. The spec inside isn't incredible, but it looks nice, it looks a more welcoming place. It wouldn't cost a lot, I'd think, internally to get it to the same standard. Externally, though, curb appeal is a difficult thing to change sometimes. And I appreciate, listeners, you can't see what we're seeing, but it's going to be spectacular. I mean, if this was plastic surgery, you're seeing a very different person here. I mean, I was going to name 2 celebrities, but probably lose even more listeners, Rob. But basically, this is not going to win any beauty pageants on the out, but maybe you can make it a little bit better looking inside and get it up to the local standard. But Rob, why hasn't this gone? It's been on for a while. You've gone a little bit deeper than surface level because you've been using some of the previous resources of the week we've recommended to dig deeper.
Yeah, so we've talked many times on the podcast about Property Bee, which is a plugin for Firefox that gives you more information. It tracks changes in the page over time, and it really comes into its own at times like this. So if you're just looking at Rightmove, basically, you can see it's been on since the end of January. You can see that it hasn't sold, and that's all you know. But with these superpowers that you get from Property Bee, you can see that actually a lot has been going on below the surface. So the interesting thing is, first of all, the agent is trying to sell this house because every couple of weeks they'll go in and they'll mess around and they'll change something in the description. So they're clearly actually trying to shift it and they haven't just forgotten about it. So that's kind of interesting in itself because you see lots of properties where it's like it's gone on, maybe it's actually sold and they've forgot, or it's been withdrawn and they've just forgotten to take it off. No, this one they are actually trying to sell it. The other interesting thing is that in May, the property was actually sold. It went sold subject to contract on the 10th of May, but then on the 6th of June, it became available again. So this is interesting because this means somebody saw it, somebody wanted it, they agreed a price, and then it fell through for some reason. You don't know, of course, why it fell through. It could be just one of those completely random things. The buyer had a change of heart or something like that. But it could be that something emerged about the property. Julie's question was, what's wrong with it? We don't know but there is a chance that there is something that made it unattractive at the current price or at the price that had been agreed. Maybe they had a survey done and something came up in there. Maybe there's a legal issue that the buyer only became aware of when they looked at it more closely. We still don't know, but that's still an interesting piece of data, the fact that they had a sale previously agreed and then it fell through.
See, that would be my first port of call, Rob. With that information, I would go to the agent and ask the question, why did the sale fall through? Now, you may not get the real reason. You might not, but you might, and that might save you a bit of time and bother. The other thing that came to me, Rob, is mortgageability. That could be another reason why it didn't go through either. So maybe speak to a mortgage broker and say, listen, if I go and fix this property, go and do these things to it, will this property be mortgageable? Because you may be prepared and you probably will need to buy this property cash, but the person who buys it off you will probably want to buy it with a mortgage. So, that being the case, you need to make sure your exit is there. You need to make sure the property is mortgageable and somebody can buy it off you. Because if it is a cash purchase, that will affect the value. It allows you to get a property at a seemingly good price, but it may mean that you can't sell it on for a good price further down the line. Although you did mention surveys, Rob, I'd be really surprised if this property hasn't got at the very least minor damp issues, but probably more severe. There's a bit of patchy paint around. Looking at the outside, there's real dark patches where it looks like water has been or rainwater issues. I'm not a builder, I'm not a developer, as in I know myself structural issues, but I don't think it takes a property refurb genius to see that this property is going to have some level of damp issues, possibly more severe.
I'd say that was a fair bet. So in terms of a flip then, I'd say if you can get it at 45, and that's a big if, then there probably is some margin in there. Looking at the properties that have sold, the most recent sale was on the same road in July, went for 70,000. It looks like it is in better nick, but not fantastic. So say that you did it to a really amazing standard, maybe you can get up towards 80. Then depending on how much the refurb costs you, there should be some margin in there. Can you get it at that price? We don't really know. And what is the resale market like? That's the other thing that I'd be looking at. Would you be selling it on to an investor? Is there a first-time buyer market in that area? But in either case, is that market active? Are you going to be able to sell it quickly at the price that you want? Those are the things that I'd be looking at. So it really comes down to local knowledge. In terms of what you're looking at, the sort of price that you're looking at, the sort of price you could sell it for, trying to gauge the cost of the refurb from the figures, it looks kind of plausible. It looks like it could work. But it really comes down to figuring out what were the issues, what is the market like there, what could you sell it for, getting very comfortable with that. That's something that we can't do on a quick glance. But hopefully from our process, you're getting an idea of the kind of questions that you should be going to find the answers to.
Absolutely. So, Julie, you've got an idea of the things you should be looking out for, some of the risks that are present with this investment. Doesn't mean it's a no. It means that you're going to need to put a bit more effort in to find out the answers. Definitely don't go into this one blind, because you may be putting it back in an auction to get rid of it, and you might have to take a hit if it all goes wrong. So do the work, do the research, start digging deeper, find out the reasons, look at the mortgageability, look at the potential structure issues, look at the damp issues, start asking questions to the agents, get a better picture, and then if you feel happy, you feel satisfied, put a cheeky offer in and see what happens. You never know. Okay, Rob, so moving on to a deal now of an area we do know. It's Crewe. And this is kind of the three, what you tend to see as more standard buy-to-let stock. This looks like a buy-to-let type property, if there is such a thing. You know, when you see it and someone says, I'm looking at buying this for a buy-to-let, you don't think, oh, that doesn't seem to fit. It kind of looks about standard. So this deal's come in from Henry. Thank you, Henry. And he's looking at a terrace in Crewe. And the purchase price he's looking to pay is £90,000. And he believes it'll rent for around 500. He likes this deal because it's in Crewe itself, so that is a plus point for him, and we can possibly look at the reasons why. It's near the station, HS2 in the future, good rental demand according to local agents, all properties let within 3 viewings. Generally, maximum voids are a week according to local agents. 2-bed terrace will rent all day long, in good enough condition to let out with minimal work. Any concerns in this deal? Possible capital growth, he says, especially if HS2 plans change and don't go ahead or do not run through Crewe. Is a 6.7% yield sufficient?
Okay, so this property, like Rob said, it looks like your fairly typical buy-to-let property. From the outside, it looks fine, nothing wrong with it at all. On the inside, it's not going to blow you away, but there doesn't appear to be anything particularly wrong with it. It seems like they've made a bit of an effort to make it look tidy for the photos at least, which isn't something that you always see. Nothing jumps out at you that really needs to be done. In terms of location, I don't know Crewe well. Rob, I'll ask you to talk more about Crewe as an area in a minute, but it does look like it's slap bang next to the station, so that looks good. If we look at what Property Bee has to say, we can see this property's been on the market since April. It was first listed at £95,000, and then the price was reduced to its current level of £92,950 in August, about a month ago, as at the point of recording. So clearly it hasn't shifted for some reason, and they've now decided to drop the price. Going and having a very quick look at the prices, on the face of it, this seems to be a little bit overpriced to me. So it's currently on for just under 93. One of the most recent comparable sales I can find was on the same street from February this year. It's also a 2-bed terrace, so should be very similar. And this one sold for 85,000, and the condition actually looks better. Now, of course, you can never really tell just by looking at photos, but it looks like this had actually been done up for sale. It looks like some work has been done to it before it's been listed, and it's actually completely ready to rent. So about £8,000 cheaper and in better condition. There's also another one on the same street that sold in June this year that there are no pictures of, but it sold for 63,000. So we don't know what the condition of that one was. So just looking at those data points, and of course you'd really want to look at more, I'd say that 90 was a tiny bit on the high side. But really, you're just kind of talking about a few £1,000s. It's not massive. It's not going to impact the yield enormously, assuming you've got the rent right. So on the face of it, a pretty standard, decent buy-to-let deal. The interesting aspect of this, Rob, is the location. It's really near the station, and Crewe is an area where there's a lot going on. So I think it's worth talking about that because it's the developments in the area that might lift this from being sort of a pretty solid standard buy-to-let into being something potentially a bit more exciting.
Yes, Crewe is an area I know well. For those who don't know, we've recently started doing a development in Crewe. It's all sold out straight away. But Crewe as an area is somewhere I've put a lot of time into researching and know a fair bit about it. As Henry said, it's going to benefit from the HS2 rail links. But Crewe itself already benefits from good rail links. It's on the West Coast Main Line. And Crewe actually is really a town that was born off the back of the railways. I could go into a bit of railway geekery here, Rob, but I'll hold back. But if you are interested, you can do that. And if you're very interested, you can go to their train museum, which is excellent. They have a very good train museum in Crewe. But I digress. But the reason I mention railways at all is because that's what really makes this town attractive from a fundamentals view, is its exceptional rail links, really quick journey times into many of the major northern cities and into London as well, as it stands. Now, that will improve when HS2 comes through, and HS2 will go through Crewe. Now, there's talk of what type of station it will have and will it be a hub or not, but Crewe will be one of the stops and it will be a place that will benefit from HS2. That project has now had the green light, it's pushing on, and actually they're looking to accelerate the project to get to Crewe a little bit sooner than they'd anticipated. So generally good news there. Now, it's not just train links that make Crewe attractive, it's also got the road links as well. So Crewe's not too far away from the M6. So you hear us talk about fundamentals a lot and the things we'd look for from a property. So transport links being a major part of that. And why is that important? Well, people can get in and out, yes, but actually it's attractive to businesses. And that's what causes the rental demand to be so strong in Crewe, is the amount of businesses that are based in Crewe. Employment's very, very good. You've got some major employers there as well, like Bentley. And there's also a major train manufacturer in the area as well. So employment's very good. You get a lot of people coming into the area on contracts too to come and work there. So from fundamentals point of view, it's very solid from rental now, but also has an exciting future. So that's why I like Crewe. But like anywhere, every area has its better areas and its not so nice areas. Now this is okay. It's okay, this area. It's not amazing, the area you're looking in. It's okay. So I tend to prefer that if I'm going into an area that's well priced already, if I can get into a better area of that location, then I'd prefer to, because the good part of Crewe should always be good, and the okay part of Crewe may become good, but then you've got to hope that happens. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'd say Crewe as a whole is very good, but be open to having a look a bit further field. And I would underline and bold Rob's comment on price. Having a look, there's plenty of stock around for around that 85 mark, and some that look a little bit nicer as well. And I don't mean miles away, I mean within a quarter of our radius. There's plenty to look at, and because there's plenty to look at, you may be able to put a few offers in across a few of the properties and get yourself a good deal. So, like Crewe, I think the investment's pretty solid. Reasonable ROI as well. You know, nothing that's going to make you run down to the pub and tell everyone, but nothing that you should be ashamed of. Good solid return for your money, while you hope in the future that capital growth comes your way. But as I say, Crewe, great, but have a look around Crewe, see if there's stronger areas you can get. That would be my advice on the area, Rob.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. If you can get into an area where it's relatively inexpensive, relatively compared to other areas, then get into the nicest bit you can, and you'll probably get a higher total return in terms of yield plus capital growth, if that's what you're interested in. If you're going into an area that's just okay and you're doing it purely for the yield, then make sure that you're getting the best yield that you possibly can by buying at the best possible price and getting yourself a good deal. Now, looking at this particular property, something that I've just noticed is that this property last sold in 2006 for £95,000. And it was originally marketed in 2017 for £95,000. So property prices not always doubling every 10 years. This one went precisely nowhere. So they now cut the price slightly, but this is really valuable information because if nothing else, the person selling is going to be anchored at their price. They're not going to want to take a loss on this. That's probably why it took them 4 months to drop the price, because they didn't want to go down from 95 and be taking a loss. Now they're realizing that they are, but they're not going to want to take more of a loss than they have to. The other thing is they might not be able to. So if they've been on a capital repayment mortgage, then they should have equity in the property, so they can at least afford to take a loss. But 2006, it's possible that they're on an interest-only mortgage. And if they are, then it's possible then they actually can't afford to sell for much lower than it is and still be able to clear the mortgage. So it's possible that is why the price is where it is. It looks a little bit high. Rob and I have both had a look and we think that cheaper, similar properties are out there. So it does seem like if this is an area that you are interested in and you've identified it as being a strong rental area, good yield, that's what you want, then it is, like Rob said, going to be a case of going out and putting in offers wherever you can and seeing where you can get the best deal. It looks to me like this could be a case where the vendor on this actually can't sell for the price that you need to be buying it at. Therefore, there might not be a deal to be done. There might be other properties where there is a deal to be done. So I've really enjoyed this. We might be completely wrong, Rob, on a lot of this, but it is amazing how much you can find out about a property these days in just like a couple of minutes of research.
It really is. It's fun for us anyway to dig into this. As you can see, we kind of got quite deep in those with really virtually no prep. The first one we kind of had a look at because it was the first, but the rest we opened up as we went through this podcast. So we've done that live. That's us just digging into deals in minutes, getting a picture, getting a feel for it. It helps, yes, if you know an area geographically, like the Crewe one. It's a little bit harder when you've got a place you can't pronounce and you've never heard of, but generally you can get a feel for an area pretty quickly by just doing some basic desktop research. And it shows you just digging a little bit deeper, going beyond the surface level of the pictures. There's plenty of useful information out there that you can take advantage of. So let us know what you think. Check out the show notes this week, which you can find at thepropertyhub.net/deals3. Go there. And then you will find a link to the Property Hub where you can let us know what you think. Give us your thoughts. Maybe even throw a few deals of your own so other Property Hubbers can give you their opinions. But hopefully, armed with a bit of knowledge of how to start digging into a deal, you'll be a bit more confident to do it yourself.
Okay, so I enjoyed that. I also enjoy sharing resources of the week, and we've got a good one coming up in just a sec. But a third thing that I enjoy is iTunes reviews, as long as they're good, Rob. So have we got a good review to read out this week? I hope so.
Well, yes, we have. Okay, so this week it comes in from Simon. Thank you, Simon. Simon says, no, we're not playing a game. It's just his review. I really like this podcast. A great property overview from some great concepts and ideas, even for a long-time property investor. I have the Robs to thank for inspiring my move to paperless with Evernote and the free guide on the Property Hub. You save me so much storage space and mountains of old documents, which is now only a small folder of the key documents. After hours of scanning through and shredding the old paperwork using ScanSnap, I now don't mind searching through all my files and replying to letters and emails. I have got a lot of great help outside of property with this podcast. I'm still getting through the back catalogue, and I'm at episode 153 now, and I look forward to hearing all the others in front of me. I've certainly rethought some of my old ideas and will now consider using mortgage brokers, new builds, off-plan property sourcing companies, and much more that was never on my radar before. Oh, can't say better than that, Rob.
That is an awesome review. We love hearing when people have taken action. We love hearing when specific ideas have been helpful. And it's just so great to hear, because it can just be the case that one little thing can just spark something and give you an idea that you wouldn't have had before. And so really glad that we've been able to do that for you, Simon. And that is a timely review, because Simon mentioned one of the courses where he picked up that tip about Evernote. And our resource of this week is another free course. It's just gone live now. And this, Rob, is on probably the most popular topic we've ever covered.
It is. So we had to do a course. It's the 18-year property cycle. You've heard about us talking about it quite a bit. We've done a feature in the magazine, the Property Hub magazine. And if you don't subscribe, you probably should. But don't worry. For the time being, while you're subscribing and you're waiting for your first magazine to come, you can get stuck into this free course, which will teach you all about the 18-year property cycle. All the information that we've learned over the years, all that knowledge piled into one free course. Yes, no charge, no sell-up, no extra thing you have to buy at the end, just a free course you can take advantage of. So make sure you do. And as Rob already pointed out, really interesting to know what areas will do what potentially in the future. If you understand past trends, it will help you predict future. For example, we had that property in Crewe, and from 2006 to 2017, it hadn't really moved. It's pretty much the same price as it was, so it hasn't moved in 10 years. Whereas we say the average, which the stats show, the average in the UK goes up every 10 years. But if you look at that area from 2001 to 2006, the average property in the area was between 20 and 30 grand. So they tripled in those 5 to 6 years. So is that fluke? Was that just good luck? Well, partly, but also the 18-year property cycle would have shown you that. It would have shown you that 2006 was a terrible time to invest. It would have shown you that around 2001 was an interesting time to invest. You could say tripling on capital growth would be interesting. But it will also show you where we are now and which areas are going to be interesting and where you should be looking at. So, Rob, I think we've built that up quite a bit, but for those reasons, for people seeing no growth or their property prices tripling, it's probably going to be worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really powerful concept. So you can go to thepropertyhub.net/18-year property cycle, or easier, just go to thepropertyhub.net/courses and you can find it there along with all the others. So do go check that out. We have talked about it before on the podcast, but we get to use graphics and stuff on the course, which is great because it's a lot easier to understand. So you'll be wanting to have a look at that. You'll also be wanting to listen to the podcast next week, where we're going to be talking about how to put an offer in. So we've had lots of listeners sending in the deals about things that they're interested in. We showed you how we go about analysing those deals. Having done that, if it's something you want to buy, well, you're not going to be able to buy it unless you put an offer in. Now, obviously, you can figure out how to do that for yourself, but there are better ways and worse ways, and there are little tricks, and there are ways that are going to make it more likely that you get the outcome you want. So we're going to be talking about that next week.
We will. So we'll be back next Thursday, and of course, we'll be back on Tuesday with Ask Rob and Rob. We are consistent. So until then, take care, everyone. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to The Property Podcast. For show notes, all our past episodes, and to leave a review, go to thepropertyhub.net/podcast.